Hi, everyone. My name is Miranda Sullivan, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Assistant at Equal Justice Works. We are here for another installment of the My Impact Alumni Series, this time with Robert Flores, a 2018 and 2020 Equal Justice Works Fellow. We're here today to talk about how an Equal Justice Works Fellowship continued Robert's career and to hopefully inspire law students to follow their passion for public service and equal justice. Thank you, Robert, for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you for having me.
So first off, how did you become involved with advocating for immigrant communities affected by disasters?
I think I can pinpoint it to 2017, right after Hurricane Harvey came to Houston. I had already been working with immigrants. I had already been practicing immigration law. And when Hurricane Harvey hit, our office closed down for about a week due to all the flooding, obviously. And when we came back, we noticed that more and more of our clients were asking if there was a way they could have the immigration office fee waived. We started to see how the members of our community were economically affected by Hurricane Harvey, and how that, which led to them not being able to afford the fee for the immigration office. So that was one of the first time that we saw the effect of Hurricane Harvey in our office. So I began to do more and more fee waivers for our clients due to applying for temporary needs-based benefits, or due to effects on their income or other financial hardships. That was really our first exposure, and my first exposure.
That's a very interesting way to get into it, and it shows how much the community was affected by it, and the importance of this work too. And so I know you've served as in both the Disaster Recovery Legal Corps and in our Disaster Resilience Program. How did you adapt your project between fellowships?
My fellowship was due to end, the Disaster Recovery Legal Corps was due to end in June of 2020. April 2020, the pandemic really had the bulk of its effect, and caused us to have to shift our work in our office, as did almost every other office in the world. And I was trying to figure out a way to wind down my fellowship. When we saw that the Equal Justice Works was going to continue doing disaster work, of course, that is something that I wanted to continue. So, and thankfully, I was able to. I had already planned to stay at my host organization, YMCA International Services, so I didn't have to adapt too much. I was very fortunate that I already had a history with my host organization that was going to continue there. It also helped that a lot of the members from the Disaster Recovery Legal Corps were also going to remain. So the partnerships that I had been working with over the past 2 years were going to continue as well. So luckily, it was a very seamless transition.
That's good to hear. And so how did your experiences as a fellow kind of influence your continued work supporting disaster-affected communities as a fellow?
It has made me more cognizant of people's situation outside of the service that I am providing them. We really started to concentrate, my office started to concentrate more on holistic services and getting to know our clients, and looking beyond the service that we were providing them directly, and asking them other questions to see how they were doing in their lives, and seeing what other services that we could provide for them, if not in our office, partner organizations, or any referrals that we could make. So it was really kind of looking at our clients beyond our attorney-client relationship and just going outside of that.
That's awesome. I'm sure they really appreciated that too as clients. And so you've talked a lot about YMCA International Services. With both of your fellowships, you were hosted there. How did you find out about Equal Justice Works and this fellowship opportunity with YMCA International Services?
I was on another grant that was providing naturalization services, which was about to end. So I was already looking to what my next area of practice was going to be. In Houston, we have the Houston Immigration Legal Services Collaborative, which provided the funding for the fellowship. And it allowed other immigration legal aids in Houston to apply for this fellowship. And we were one of them, and we were selected. So I talked to our director at the time and asked if I could apply, and she said yes. So I applied, and thankfully she agreed that I would be a good fit for the fellowship. I was very excited because it would allow me to diversify what I was doing. I had been on projects that pigeonholed me into certain kinds of processes in immigration law, and I was very much looking forward to expanding my knowledge and my practice and doing different kinds of work that I hadn't been given the opportunity before, just because it wasn't the purpose of the project I was working with.
That's awesome. I'm glad that the fellowships kind of gave you the freedom to work on those things that you'd been wanting to. And so as a fellow, you helped address the legal needs of immigrants affected by disasters and who were systemically cut off from local, state, and federal aid after a disaster. How are you able to successfully connect and engage with immigrant communities?
Thankfully, YMCA International Services has had a reputation in the Houston area for providing immigration legal services. We had pre-existing relationships with all of the other immigration legal aids in Houston. Lots of times clients would come to us seeking help. So I was fortunate that I didn't have to go out. It was more of talking to people on a one-on-one basis and getting to know their lives better to see if we could help them based on being disaster affected, which I prefer. I like to have one-on-one conversations, in-depth conversations, and have the time to really talk to someone rather than going out and doing community outreach events, which do have their benefit, but it's a very passing a kind of experience. Whereas when you have the ability to sit with someone in your office and talk to them one-on-one in private, you're able to just get to know them better and really determine what help that you can give them. So I was very lucky that we already had that infrastructure in place that allowed me to do that.
That's awesome. And so it sounds like you were able to work a lot with the community. Can you describe some of the ways that you were able to build effective community partnerships during your fellowship?
Been very lucky that I have very close acquaintanceships and friendships with other attorneys and other people who work in the immigration legal field in Houston. I'm very lucky that I can reach out to them if I ever need any kind of technical support, or if they have clients that they don't have capacity to help, but they have screened them also for disaster effectiveness, they can refer them to me. I have a friend in another organization who does similar work, but doesn't have the liberty to provide services the way I did at the time. And I always used to say, if you have someone that needs help, feel free to give me their information and I will reach out to them to see if I can help. So those pre-existing relationships helped a lot. We also were able to form new relations within the Houston Immigration Legal Services Collaborative. We had the opportunity to go to the immigration courts and actually speak to people in removal proceedings on a rotating basis with all of our other partners. And we were able to kind of see trends, identify gaps, identify things that were working, things that were not working. So this fellowship really helped give me the freedom and open the doors for me to be involved in that.
That's great. Is there anyone you worked with your fellowship who was particularly helpful and or inspiring?
I want to pick 3 people. I want to pick my three colleagues who are also immigration disaster legal fellows, Javier, Amy, and Maria. I could not have, they were great partners to work with, and it felt so good to have other people who knew the immigration system and that we could commiserate with each other, express frustrations with each other, but also inspire and encourage one another.
That's great. I'm glad you had that network to support you along the way. And it seems like you had a lot of different experiences during your fellowships. So what would you say is the most exciting part about being an Equal Justice Works Fellow?
For me, it was the ability to see other forms of law. Immigration law can be a little isolating. It intersects with many other areas of law, but I don't ever actually get to see that practice. And being in the Disaster Recovery Legal Corps and Disaster Resiliency Program, I was able to see civil law in a way that I hadn't been able to see before. I was able to see how disaster effectiveness affects other legal processes. I was able to understand the importance of title clearance, of FEMA appeals, of insurance. I was able to see how people with disabilities are affected or systemically cut off from services. And I would not have had that exposure without the fellowship. And I got to meet great people outside of the immigration bubble.
That's great. I'm glad that it kind of helped you to kind of see this area of law in a different light. And at least from like a different perspective, and just see how it intersects with so many other issues along the way. So it's really great. Can you share some highlights or success stories from your time as a fellow?
As a personal success, I think my immigration knowledge experience increased exponentially during my 3 years. I was working on different kinds of cases, both within the immigration office, immigration court system. I wasn't able to do that before. I learned about waivers, removal proceedings, cancellation or removal, all these other acronyms and words that we use in immigration law that I wasn't able to do before. And I got to learn about them. I got to help people in ways that I hadn't been able to. I was able to represent families in court and ensure that they could remain here with their families, which was incredibly, for me, it was a relief for them to be able to feel that through them vicariously, that they wouldn't have to be separated. So that was very exciting and very rewarding, definitely. Successes, being able to help people who couldn't afford these services otherwise. Immigration can put a lot of strain economically on families, especially larger families who have complex needs. And the fact that I was able to provide them with these services, but also be able to guide them through fee waivers so that they wouldn't have to make other kinds of sacrifices just to be able to afford the application. I was very thankful that I was able to do that for them.
That's great. And so you've talked about how your fellowship kind of helped prepare you for continuing in this area of law. Is there anything that you did in school that prepared you for your work as a fellow, or anything that you did prior to your fellowship that really helped you during your time as a fellow and the work you continue to do as an immigration attorney at YMCA International Services?
I did the immigration and asylum law clinic while I was in law school at South Texas College of Law in Houston. That helped me understand that what I thought immigration law was not what immigration law was. I was kind of given an introduction into the system to understand what I thought asylum was is not what the United States Congress defined asylum. I was able to understand the intense paperwork that had to be done, how language barriers can cut people off from seeking benefits that they are eligible for. And when I started working, I was able to actually help people overcome those barriers. So my time in the clinic really kind of opened my eyes. And then when I started practicing law, I was able to actually use my hands and knowledge that I had acquired and continue to acquire to help people.
That sounds like a very helpful experience, especially like considering how related it is to what you continued on to do. So that's awesome. What's your advice for people who are unsure about what area of public interest law they want to get involved in?
I would say start off with looking at what causes an emotional reaction from you right now, whether that is good or bad. Look at something that is exciting to you, that you see around you, that you see in media, and look to see if there is any way that you can get involved. And this can be any interest. Public interest is an incredibly wide net. It can be anything from immigration to education rights, rights for people with disabilities, accessibility, reproductive rights. Just it's a field that almost has no limits. If it falls under the category of equal justice, it's public interest, and you can get involved, and there's very different ways to get involved. So I would say start off with what interests you, whether it be academically or something that you're passionate about. Start there and just look to see what you can do. If it's where you live now, if you had to relocate, just it's up to you what you want to do, but just start off with what interests you.
That's really good advice. Thanks, Robert. As someone who continues to make a lasting impact on the communities you serve, are there any words of advice that you can share with new fellows who are beginning their 2-year projects?
I would say that your best is enough. You are doing very hard work. You are doing very new work. You are doing work that is very emotionally and mentally exhausting. So don't underestimate your best. I would also say that as you advocate for other people, do not forget to advocate for yourself and speak up for yourself, because that is something that I think can be lost when we are mission focused, that we forget about ourselves and what our needs are and what we need from either our host organizations, from our partners. We need to be able to speak up for ourselves as well. And you need to be able to speak up for yourselves.
That's really good advice. Thank you. And what can they do to get the most out of their new fellowships?
Find and appreciate those moments of like excitement more than those moments of frustration. Those will keep you going. Just know that what you're doing is good, and celebrate that at any point that you can, at every point you can.
Thanks, Robert. And one final question. So with this month being National Preparedness Month, I wanted to take the time to ask you about the ways public interest attorneys and law students can increase awareness and help communities understand the importance of disaster preparedness.
There's one, I think, fundamental truth to disasters is that it can make an already bad situation worse. So for people who are already disadvantaged or already struggling in one way, being affected by a disaster just exponentially makes things almost seem unbearable. So just understanding that truth is, I think, is very important. Also, it's important to reach out beyond your bubble or beyond the area that you practice to see if there's any other ways that you can help, or to see if your practice can benefit another area. For example, if someone is having issues that require them to be citizens, but you're doing a civil issue, reach out to an immigration attorney and form those partnerships, and vice versa. Our areas of law intersect in ways that we can't even understand, or that we don't know the extent to which they intersect. So just being willing to just go outside and talk to people outside of your practice of law.
That's another great answer. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. It was such a pleasure learning more about what motivated you to become an Equal Justice Works Fellow and learning more about your career journey following your fellowships. And most importantly, thank you again for your continued commitment to advocating on behalf of underserved communities. Thank you.
Thank you.